Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 234th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Goal Setting for 2025. Now, our last episode was about your word for 2025, so I hope that all of you have a word that you are bringing into this year. And I had mentioned on my calls that I was doing a live training in the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group on goal setting. I do goal setting trainings every single year. And when I got off the goal setting training, it was actually last Monday at the time of me recording this episode. I was like, that was a really good episode. So what I'm going to be doing for this podcast is I'm actually going to be playing the replay of the Facebook Live, the training on goal setting for 2025. Now, I hope that you find a lot of value in this. There's going to be a little bit of disconnect. You'll hear like I'm talking to Facebook users or people in Zoom, but you guys know what's going on, so we'll be fine. If you want to get the handout that I'm referencing, you will have to go into the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group. If you're not a member, just request and I'll get you in there. And at the top, for really all of 2025, I will have pinned to the top the training. So you go into the training and you'll find a link to access the workbook. So I hope that you enjoy this episode as you start making a plan for 2025. I am really excited for this year. Honestly, you guys, I just have so much energy and enthusiasm, and it's kind of fun that we're like at the 25th year of 2000s. It's pretty cool. So enjoy this episode, and I will see you next week on the podcast. Hello and welcome everyone to this free training on goal setting for 2025. I've done this training for years now. I was trying to think back, when was the first time I did it? But I'm going to be sharing lots of stuff on this call, including the fact that I love setting goals. Not everyone's big on goals, but you're going to hear from me a little bit more on why I think that we should all be setting big, audacious goals. I'll share a little bit of my story. You'll get a workbook and have everything you need to plan out your year to make 2025 the best one yet. So thank you guys so much for joining me. We are streaming live into the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group. So anyone who is watching this on replay or in the Facebook group, go ahead and comment and let us know that you are here. And for my friends here live on Zoom, go ahead and comment where you're from. Now, I think most of you are dietitians, but I know some might not be. So you could also put what your profession is. So your profession and where you live. So a little bit about me. My name is Katie Dodd, and I live in Southern Oregon. A lot of people, when they think Oregon, they think I live in Portland, and I'm actually like 4 hours south of Portland. I am way closer to California. I'm a hop, skip, and a jump from California. I am the mom of 2 kiddos. My son is 14 years old, which is very weird. He's turning 15 this year. We actually did some goal setting as a family this year, and my son wants to learn to drive. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. You are far too young. I'm like, oh no, you are getting close. And my daughter is 9 years old. I am a full-time entrepreneur. I will be sharing a little bit more of my story later on. I am the owner of my business, which is technically called Katie Dodd Nutrition LLC. And while I wear lots of different hats in my business, I'll share that on the next slide. Really, my 3 big brands include Dietitian Side Hustle, the Geriatric Dietitian, and High Calorie Recipes. So this picture right here is kind of a party, but this just shows different programs I have created, places that I have been featured in online, including the U.S. News Best Diets report that just released yesterday, I think, or maybe the day before for 2025. I've been on that board for a couple of years. But in a nutshell, I am an entrepreneur and I am an online dietitian, and I love helping other dietitians go out there and make their biggest dreams come true, which is why I love doing this training. So I'm going to take a peek at comments. I think I might need, oh, there they are. Looking at the chat. So Brenda's from South Dakota. Christina's a dietitian from Hawaii. Oh, thanks for logging in from Hawaii. Becky is in Chicago. Elizabeth is in Kentucky. Dietitian, now high school teacher. Woo, woo. Adrian is in Connecticut and is a freelance writer. Julia is a RD2B, lives in Washington, my time zone, and also have an almost 14-year-old son. Yikes. Yeah, it's wild. I know you can't tell from Zoom, but I'm very tall. I'm 5'11", and my son is taller than me. He's 6'1" right now and still growing. And Stacy is a dietitian from Missouri. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about what we are going to be covering over the next hour-ish for this training. We're going to talk about becoming the 3%, 10 steps to becoming a goal crusher. I'm going to share a little bit about my story and throw in some mindset and hopefully a little bit of inspiration in there, and then talk about just some opportunities for continued support. Now, before we dive in, I want to share a belief that I have with every single bone in my body, and it is that dietitians are world changers. Dietitians can change the world. I believe that each and every one of you has a dream in your heart, an idea in your head, and if we could just get it out into the world would be radically changed by it. It's just so many of us get stuck. We get in our own way and we find ourselves dreaming about things that never come to fruition. And I want to see more of you become more than just dreamers. I want to see you become doers so that way we can get out there and make the impact that we were made to have. I'm looking at the comments here. Julia, my son is towering over me also. It's very strange to look up. Brenda, my oldest just turned 15. He's been driving for 6 months. I, I still feel like I was pregnant with Gavin. And I'm like, I just, it's still very hard for me to wrap my head around. I'll probably feel like that forever. He'll be 40. I'll be like I was just pregnant. I feel like that's parenthood. Just makes time go fast. Okay, so let's talk about the 3%. I love listening to podcasts. I'm a podcaster myself, and one particular podcast that I like to listen to is called The Blogging Millionaire by Brandon Gailey. I'm a blogger. I actually listened to Brandon's podcast before I even really started blogging and modeled my own podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle, off of his. Short and actionable. Now, I don't remember the exact episode that he shared this on, but he was sharing some statistics on goals. And what he shared is that 83% of the population does not have goals. That didn't surprise me. Most people out there aren't these big movers and shakers. They're just doing their thing, right? Now, 14% of the population has a plan in mind, but no written goals. So I'm going to start a side hustle. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do this thing. It's a plan in your mind. You talk about it, but you actually haven't written down specific goals on how you're going to achieve it. Now, this group who has a plan in mind is 10 times more likely to be successful than the 83% who just don't have any goals. But the 3%. The 3% is that sweet spot, and this is 3% of the population has written goals. They've gotten these ideas out of their head, put them on paper, and have a plan. Now, this group is 300 times more likely to be successful than the 14% who are 10 times more likely to be successful than the 83%. So this is the reason I'm doing this call. This is the reason I am such a big fan of goals, is because I know that in order for you to have success, you are going to increase your likelihood significantly if you have not only a plan in mind, but you get it out of your head, write it on paper, and I want you guys to be the 3%. So my question for you, who do you want to be? The 83%, the 14%, or the 3%? If you are ready to write down some goals and dive on in, go ahead and comment 3% in the chat. So I'm going to go over a workbook that I'll be sharing with you. We're not going to tangibly do this on the call because it's just going to take more time than we have on this call. We could always make this workshop and we could do it together. We actually did that with my blogging accelerator program last week. We did this actual same training together. But for the sake of this one, I'm just going to go over the steps that I do to crush some goals. I'm going to give you some workbooks so that way you can do it on your own. I'm going to do some training, and then I'll give you guys some action items where I want you to schedule out a time, like about an hour, to do the workbook, do what I'm teaching you to do. So the 10 steps I'm going to go over at high level, then we have a slide for each one, and I'll kind of explain it more. So the 10 steps to becoming a goal crusher include: number 1, figuring out your why; number 2, beginning with the end in mind; number 3, sitting down with pen and paper and dream; number 4, dreaming bigger; number 5, writing down your goals; number 6, sorting your goals into quarters; number 7, adding action steps under each goal; number 8, posting those goals; number 9, sharing them with your community; and then number 10, crushing it. So I'm going to go through each of these with you, and I will be sharing a link soon, and we'll go take a peek at this document. It's the Goal Crusher Workbook. This is something I do myself. It's not just something that I teach. And you'll notice there's a lot more to this. We're not just saying write down some goals. We're doing some foundational things to help you dig really deep to have more success as that 3%er. So step number 1, I actually teach this in almost everything I do, and it is starting with why. There's a book by Simon Setnick. I should have snagged the book. I've got it somewhere in here in my office or maybe in my library, and it's called Start with Why. And I remember reading that book. I'm like, yes, this is so good because I've been talking about finding your why for so long. Simon Setnick actually spoke at Virtual Fancy years back, all about why. It was very good. But there is a lot behind figuring out your why. We know that most dietitians who are setting these goals related to side hustles, business, all these things, you have so many hats you're wearing. Many of you work full-time jobs. Your parents, your friends, you're humans with a life. And you only have so much time in the day. And we also know that life happens. There's this phrase I've been talking about within my mastermind and blogging accelerator program lately about how like life just keeps lifing. Things just happen. Life is amazing. It is full of amazing highs, but then also crushing lows, ups and downs. And if we don't have a strong why, if we don't have a really strong foundation on why we are doing the things, when life gets crazy, when life gets busy, when things don't go the way we thought they would, we are more likely just to stop. We're more likely to be like, okay, that was a cool training I attended with Katie. I dreamed really big, but you know what? It's just not going to work out. And we know that the dreams that we have, when we defer them, it does make our heart sick. So we want to pursue them relentlessly. So we start with figuring out your why. It's like building your house on a solid foundation. Now, what is your why? We all have a different one. And I put some ideas actually up here on the slide. I normally don't have this, but I think it's helpful to really kind of stare at it to figure out like, okay, what is my individual why? We're all different. There is no wrong why, but we have to find out what is the thing that drives us more than anything. What is the thing that is strong enough that no matter what happens tomorrow, we're going to keep pursuing these dreams and goals that we have because we know that we can't give up because our why is so strong, it is non-negotiable. Now, your why could be relationships. It could be relationships with a significant other, relationships with your children, relationships with friends. Maybe what your why is that you want to be present with them. I will share a little bit of my story later, but my big why has been my children. I mentioned earlier, I guess I started talking off, so maybe you guys could tell why that they're my why. But I had this urgency in me that my kids are getting so old so fast, and I feel like the moments are just passing by, and I'm missing out on moments because I was working a full-time job a few towns away, and I wanted to be present with my kids. So when I started my side hustle, when I started my journey to leave my job, I had a vision board actually right behind where this computer is now. If you ever see me point and when I talk about a vision board, that's why. And I would stare at it all the time. And I remembered my why when things were hard. My why was I wanted to be home to be present with them while they were still in my home. So maybe your why has something to do with the relationships in your life. Maybe your why has to do with a vision that you have of a future life that you've always planned. Like I always planned to live here. I always planned to travel the world. I always planned to have the white picket fence, whatever it looks like for you. But maybe your strong why is a future life that you've always envisioned. And you're like, I want to make this a reality. And I know that in order to do this, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe your why is your faith. Maybe that is that strong driver behind you. That's actually my other why is my faith, is to live out God's calling for my life. It is stronger than anything and drives me even in moments that I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Maybe it could be your health. Maybe it could even be like maybe when you were younger or even as you were older, you had a significant health issue. You met a dietitian and they completely changed your life. And you realize the transformative power of food and nutrition. And your why is that you want to make sure that no one ever goes through the horrible thing that you went through, right? That's your why. You got knowledge that you could help people. You want to make an impact in this world. Maybe it's finances, and that's okay. I feel like a lot of dietitians, we struggle with money mindset. Maybe you just want to have financial freedom. You don't want to worry about money. You want to be able to buy what you want to buy. You want to be able to buy groceries, buy eggs, because let's be honest, they're expensive. You just want to not have to worry and stress about money. That's okay. Maybe you want time freedom. You want to be able to get up and do whatever you want to do. That actually was one of my big ones too. My kids, my faith, and just having time to do what I wanted to do. But step number one is taking time to figure out what drives you, what is your why, because we have to start with a solid foundation. We're not just doing fluff here. We have a really solid foundation that we need to build. So after we figure out our why, step number two is beginning with the end in mind. So what I mean by that is I know that we are now in 2025, but I want you to imagine that it is the end of December 2025. We've made it through the holidays of next year, and you and I are sitting down having coffee together, and we're having a conversation. And you're telling me, Katie, I can't believe that I did this year. And you're telling me about the things that you accomplished, the things that you experienced, what life looks like now, how you feel. I want you to begin with the end in mind and think about this time next year. What do you want to have? What do you want to do? What do you want to experience? What do you want life to look like? Maybe you're going to be crazy audacious and be like, I want to be a full-time entrepreneur this time, next year. Maybe it's something small. Maybe it's like, I just want to start a blog. I just want to start a business. What is it? Before we start setting these goals, think about what you want this time next year to look like. So taking time to dream and scheme. And that goes into step number 3, sitting down with pen and paper and dream. Now, I'm going to give you a link to print out this workbook. You can always do it digitally, but I do recommend printing it out. I do think that there's a lot of power in putting pen to paper, not just writing it in your phone and typing it on the computer, but really sitting down with pen and paper. And one important thing that I want to say with this one is actually having quiet alone time. Many of us never experience that. So actually finding time to sit down by yourself with no distractions, no phones, no devices, no emails, no humans, no distractions, to actually dream. We have so much in our minds, we just don't have the time to slow down and listen. So taking time to be quiet, to be alone, and to dream. What do you want? Take time to put everything on paper that you actually want to achieve. And these can be big, audacious goals, right? I'm going to be talking to you guys about that. Not even just limited to this year. Maybe you're like, I don't just want to leave my job. I want to write a book. I want to reach millions of people. I want to start a podcast. I want to be, on the biggest platforms. I want to make this crazy impact. It doesn't have to be that big. It could be something low key, and that's fine too. But sit down to dream. Step number 4 is dream bigger. I work with a lot of different dietitians, and I will tell you something that is very consistent is that we dream too small. We try to be realistic. We are like, well, I don't want to dream too big because what if I set a big goal and I don't meet it? And then I'm gonna feel really bummed that I didn't meet it. But I will tell you, we only rise to the levels that we think that we will achieve. We could set a really, really crazy high goal, and even if we don't meet it, we'll probably land higher than if we set that small goal. So after you dream, you write down all these dreams, asking yourself, is there something that I didn't write down? Something in my guts that I'm so scared to speak out into the world because I'm worried that people will be like, "Ooh, who do you think you are to do that? You can't possibly do that. That is impossible. That is for other people, but that's not for you." Not in this lifetime. Whatever doubts you might have in your brain, just be honest with yourself. Is there something that you did not put on paper, that you did not get out of your head because you felt like that dream was too big, was too audacious, was too impossible? Maybe you're worried about what other people would say. You're worried about judgment. You're worried about, oh, well, what I know this is impossible, so it's not going to come true. So I don't want to let myself down. Dream bigger than you would normally allow yourself to dream. Step number 5 is writing down your goals. And this is and I'll kind of walk you through this whole process. And this is more like, okay, here's a big dream, but let's get specific. What are the goals that I want to achieve? Now, as dietitians, we do learn about SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. So it's not just pie in the sky. This year, I'm going to start a business, but very specific about what you're going to do. So step number 5 is to write down some goals. They don't have to be so specific yet, but just kind of taking all those dreams, taking all those ideas, looking at this year, beginning with the end in mind of what you want this like things to look like this time next year, and write down some goals. Now, in the workbook I'm going to give you, I think there's only like spots to write 7 goals. So we're not getting too crazy because we're dreaming crazy big, but we're also being realistic with the time that we have. So we write down those goals, get them on paper. Then we move into step 6, which is sorting our goals into quarters. Because the reality is, while there are 365 days in the year, if we go into this year and we're like, I'm going to do everything all at once, you're going to be so overwhelmed, you're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to do none of the things. So it is spreading it throughout the year, looking at the goals that you have. Well, what am I going to tackle first? Q1, January through March. Okay, what am I going to do next? Q2, April to June, Q3, July to September, and Q4, October to December. As I have created goals in my own business, I do quarterly goals because I understand if I try to do everything at once, I'm going to burn myself out, and it's just going to feel so overwhelming of like, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do, versus like, I don't even have to think about doing that goal until the end of the year, then I'm going to tackle it. And as you look at the goals you've written, you could probably logically put like, okay, I got to do this before I do this. So there probably will be an order. So once you have all of these goals figured out and you have when you're going to do them, you're going to write action steps under each goal. So what I recommend in step 7, and it is in the workbook, but you will actually be writing out the goals as SMART goals because now you figured out what quarter you're going to do. So you're going to get real specific, right? Time, all the things. You're going to rewrite your goals, and underneath it, you're going to put a bunch of check boxes. And you're going to put, what are the action items that I need to do to achieve this goal? Now, you might have no idea. And if that's the case, your first action item is going to be figure out how to do the thing. And that's okay. But you might know what to do. You might be like, oh, okay, I want to start a blog. I've got to buy my domain. I got to find a website host. I got to learn SEO. Like you might know the things. So writing down what you have to do. The reason we want to do this is most of you are very busy. You find a slot of time to work. And you might just look at your goals and be like, I have no idea where to start. This feels so pie in the sky. But if you took the time to write down the action steps, you just got to go to the next bullet point, knock that out, bought my domain, bought my website host, one thing at a time. And it's going to make things feel more doable when you feel overwhelmed with the life that's going to happen over this next year. So step number 8 is posting your goals. And what I mean by that is printing out your goals. Now they could be written down or you could, type them up and print them out, but put them somewhere that you will see them on a regular basis. We don't want to create these amazing goals, put them in a drawer somewhere and not look at them until the end of the year and be like, oh yeah, I did want to do that. So putting it somewhere you will see it on a regular basis. You could save it as a screensaver on your phone, on your computer. You could print it out and put it like in your closet or in your bathroom mirror, somewhere that you will look at it on a regular basis. We want to continue to come back to them. I actually keep my goals in I have a planner that I keep every day right here, and my goals are in it. So that way I do look at it and check in all the time. So step number 9 is sharing with your community. And I know we all have different levels of community, but you all have access to the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group. So if you have nowhere to share it there. Honestly, I love seeing your guys' big dreams and goals, but there's a lot of power in sharing with community, with the right community. Sharing it with community, we're speaking out into the world. So that way it's not something, again, that we kind of like dust under, like, I don't know, put under the rug, right? Be like, oh, shoot, no one's going to know. If I don't tell anyone I'm going to do it, then if I fail, no one's going to know. That's not the right mindset. We got to go into this like, I am capable. I can do this. I'm going to share with people who will hold me accountable. I will hold myself accountable because I want to show people that I'm going to show up and do the thing I said I was going to do and share with people. Surround yourself with community that is going to build you up, inspire you, and motivate you to do the thing. And then step number 10 is to do the thing. So going out there, being consistent, continuing to do the work, coming back to your action items, pivoting, twisting, and turning as you need to, because these goals that you create will be, they'll be fluid. You might even realize like, oh, I actually don't even want to achieve that. That's okay. You might realize I need to change this goal. That's okay. But we just want to continue to show up and do the work. So those are the 10 steps that I do and that I teach my students on how to become a goal crusher. Figuring out why, building that strong foundation so that way when life starts lifing, we continue to show up because we know why we are doing the thing. Beginning with the end in mind. What do you want things to look like 1 year from now? Sitting down with pen and paper and dreaming so big, and then being honest with yourself and dreaming even bigger. Writing down your goals, sorting those goals into quarters, knowing you can't do everything at once, adding action steps under each goal, then posting those goals so that way you look at them on a regular basis and sharing with your community and doing the thing. So let's take a peek at the workbook. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in the chat. If someone could open it and let me know if it works, that would be lovely. So I'm going to, I know it'll open for me, but sometimes like, the settings are a little wonky and only I can view it. Okay, I'm going to also drop this in the Facebook group for anyone watching. Oh, hi, friends. We have a few people watching on Facebook. Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks, Becky. It opened. Okay, so this is the workbook that I sent you guys. It is a PDF that you can print out. It is shared in Google Docs, and I'm just going to go over it real quick. It's everything I just taught you guys, but it's a place to write all the things. I'm going to tell you guys later, but I'll tell you now. I want you to find an hour at some point this week, preferably by this weekend. Like, don't wait too long or else life's going to life. And print this out and find time to do it. So step 1, figuring out your why. I am driven by. Step 2, beginning with the end in mind. This time next year, I want to have. Step 3, sit down with pen and paper and dream. So bring everything you want to achieve. And if you print these on like single side, you could also write on the back. Step 4 is dreaming bigger, meaning look back at your list. Is there anything you left out or maybe made it too small? Maybe you set a financial goal that was too small, or maybe put a timeline that was too far out. Step 5, writing down your goals. You'll see there's only a certain number of bullet points, and don't feel like you have to fill out every bullet point. Then you go back to those and you write Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Then step 7, there's a full page for this, but you might need the back of it. But rewriting your goals, and then including those check boxes underneath them for the action items you need to do. Understanding that your action item might be like, figure out what I need to do, because you might not have any idea how to do the thing that you're wanting to do yet. And then these are just reminders for you posting the goal, sharing with your community, and crushing it. So let me close that. Okay, let's get back to our presentation. Okay, so that is the workbook that I want all of you to do, but I want to take some time to share a little bit about my story. And I mentioned early on that I love goals. I've always called myself a goal crusher. I love setting big goals. And so I'm going to go back and share a little bit of my history of the goals that I've set, how I've achieved them, and how I've pushed myself to dream even bigger on this journey. Now, right out of school, I graduated from California State University, Chico in 2006, went on to Southern Illinois University, Carbondale for my master's and my internship, graduated that in 2008. So in 2008, I actually set 4 big goals that I had. These were my career goals. These were the things that I wanted to do for the duration of my career. I wanted to be a geriatric dietitian. I got a job working at the VA doing home care, and I was primarily working with older adults. What I realized getting into this job is I knew very little about older adults because as a dietitian, we are generalists. And I learned a little bit of everything, but very little about older adults. And I wanted to be good at what I did. So I'm like, I want to become a geriatric dietitian certified through the Commission on Dietetic certified by the Commission on Dietetic Registration. The CSG credential is the one I wanted. Now, I also love leadership, so I wanted to become the president of the Oregon Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. I wanted to become the chair of the Healthy Aging Dietetic Practice Group because that's the DPG that's most related to what I do. And I wanted to get my doctorate by the time I was 40. So those were the big goals that I set. But I will tell you, because I'm a goal crusher and I created a plan and I started doing the work, I met those goals real early, like real early. I think I met them all within very close to the 5-year period. So around 5 years into my career as a dietitian, I'm like, oh gosh, I've just crushed all of my goals for my career. What am I gonna do now? So I heard a coworker at the VA, he wasn't a dietitian, but he said this goal and it sounded really crazy to me. And he said, I want to make 100K in 10 years. He wanted to be at a point that he was making $100,000 a year, 10 years of working at the VA. And I thought that was a crazy goal. I'm like, oh, that's too crazy for me. But I thought a safer goal was, well, what if I doubled my pay in 10 years of working at the VA? When I started working, I was making $45,000 a year. And I was like, well, what if my goal is to make 90,000, double my pay in 10 years? That feels doable. Well, honestly, it felt crazy. Crazy, but doable. So that became my next goal that I was working on is how can I make more money in my full-time job? Now, at this time, I did not yet realize the doors that entrepreneurship had, but because I was a goal crusher, I started really crushing it within my job. I was an entrepreneur, which means I was an entrepreneur in my job. And I was able to double my pay a lot quicker than I thought. So I was like, okay. Well, what if my new goal is 10 years in, I want to hit 6 figures between my full-time job and my side hustle? Because it was around this time that I did start side hustling. I started becoming a side hustler through freelance writing, doing webinars, some work with brands. And I was like, okay, I've doubled my pay. I'm at 90,000. Well, what if I start a side hustle? Okay, I can make within 10 years of becoming a dietitian, I can make 6 figures, right? Kind of like that goal my coworker had of, making 6 figures in 10 years. I'm like, okay, I could do this between my full-time job and my side hustle. So here's where we kind of get fun in the story. And this is when I started diving into the world of entrepreneurship in 2019. Now, 10 years in, I did hit 6 figures between my job and my side hustle. So I started some new goals in 2019, and this was the start of my income goals, where I actually started sharing how much money I want to make every month. Now, the pictures that I'm sharing here are kind of fun. Some of you who've been in my world for a while have heard versions of this story and have seen these pictures before, but I am at the Space Needle in Seattle. Some of you might, well, all of you probably recognize this, but if you go into the Space Needle, the bottom is glass. So I am lying on the glass and my poor dad is taking this picture over me, very embarrassed, but I was very excited for the shot. And I'm so glad he took it because this picture is one that's very special to me. While you can't see it on the outside, I know that on the inside, there is an idea in my head. There's a dream in my heart. An idea was sparked on this very day, and this picture is the Katie who has this dream in her head that I'm going to start a business. Now, I never thought that I could be an entrepreneur because I knew I didn't want to work with clients. I didn't want to work with patients. I worked with them in my full-time job, and I had no interest in working with patients outside of my full-time job. So I never self-identified as an entrepreneur. But I was in Seattle for the Oregon-Washington Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics conference, and I heard three amazing entrepreneurial dietitians speak, and I swear they were speaking directly into my soul. And I decided, number one, I am an entrepreneur, and then I'm gonna do something really big. I don't know what it is yet, but I remember being in the train going from this hotel with the convention center to the Space Needle with my dad and dreaming and scheming. I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna do something big. I don't even know what it is yet, but I had a dream in my head. This was in spring of 2019. Now, spring of 2000 or in 2019 at the beginning when I was setting my goals, I mentioned income goals. So I want to tell you the big audacious goal that I set. So the big audacious goal that I set in my side hustle is that I wanted to make $300 a month. At the time, that felt pretty big. I pretty much wanted to pay a bill. I mean, at this point, I've got two kiddos. Adulting is hard, living paycheck to paycheck, and I just wanted to have some breathing room. That's all I really wanted. And so my goal was just to make $300 a month in my side hustle, so about $3,600 a month. So that was the big audacious goal that I had set for an income goal in 2019. Now, I'm going to be sharing little screenshots of things along the way of my journey of different things that kind of changed the course of my career. One was being in Seattle and being inspired to become an entrepreneur. But this next one here is in July 2019 when I first virtually met my now coach, Greg Todd. He is a physical therapist right here. And I ended up attending like this Facebook Live in a group called Registered Dietitian Approved. They used to be really active back in the day. And when I attended this live, Greg talked about entrepreneurship in a way that I never heard before. And I was so inspired. And I went from dreaming small to starting to dream really big. I started showing up in different ways, doing different things. I had started a blog at this point called The Geriatric Dietitian, and I was dreaming and scheming of what can I do bigger. So now at the end of 2019, while my goal was to make 3,600, I ended up making 7,500 in my side hustle. And I thought I made it big. One fun thing at the very end of 2019, I actually started my podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle. And sorry, I just got distracted by a text. So, I started my podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle, because I mentioned I worked at the VA, I did home care, and when I was driving from patient to patient, I would listen to podcasts. One of them was Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn, and he had this podcast called The State of Podcasts in 2020. Pretty much he said, you need to start a podcast. So I said, okay, Pat Flynn, I think it was like within 4 or 5 days, by the time the weekend was over, I had my podcast live. So in the podcast, I actually talked about goal setting and I talked about my income goals. And so I went ahead and shared a big audacious goal that I had. And my big audacious goal for 2020 was I wanted to make $25,000 in my side hustle. Now, remember the year before, my goal was 3,600, and I felt like that was big. I ended up making like I almost doubled my goal. That's pretty darn good. But going to 25,000, now that felt crazy. But I put it out into the world. I shared with my community. I said, "Hey guys, this is what I'm gonna do." Feels very big, pie in the sky. Now, I mentioned Greg Todd before, and I watched a lot of his free content, but it wasn't until January 2020 that I actually paid for one of his challenges that he did. It was a paid challenge. I think it was like 97 bucks. Most of his stuff is very expensive. So 97, I'm like, I can afford that. So I did this challenge and it was so inspirational. I ended up buying his expensive programs and pretty much have continued to be in his world since. But let me tell you what happened in 2020 after kind of getting exposed to his world and dreaming big and seeing all of the amazing things that we could do in the entrepreneurial space. Now, I didn't just hit my goal of $25,000 in a side hustle. I ended up making $33,500 in my side hustle. Again, I thought I made it big. So then when it came time to setting my goals for 2021, I will tell you my goal initially was to make 50,000. It was bigger than 33, but when I did the step that I taught you guys about dreaming bigger, I really had to look at myself and be like, Katie, you're dreaming too small. So I set a goal of making $100,000 in my side hustle, which felt crazy because remember when I'm like, oh, Maybe six figures between my job and my side hustle. And how audacious and crazy did that sound to want to make six figures in a side gig? But I went ahead and said it. I put it out into the world. I shared it on my podcast, and I continued to show up in business. Now, at this time, Dietitian Side Hustle is getting bigger. I've started my blogging accelerator program where I help dietitians and healthcare professionals build businesses based in blogging, and I was continuing to grow my brand. Now, let me tell you what happened in 2021. So, did I make $100,000 in my side hustle? Yes, I did, and I made more. I made $150,000 in a side hustle, which was completely mind-blowing for me. So I'm going to do a quick recap of these 3 years from when I was in Seattle, dreaming and scheming at the Space Needle, to 2021, what my actual income reports were for my side hustle. Keep in mind, I'm working a full-time job, mom of two kids, also got a life, volunteer way too much in the field. In 2019, I made just over $7,000. 2020, I made $33,000. 2021, I made $150,000 in a side hustle. And I'm sharing these numbers because I want you guys to see what's possible and then also be inspired to dream big. 2019, I'm going to share a little bit more about that goal in a minute. I could have never imagined making $150,000 in a side hustle. Remember, $300 a month was my big goal. But when we do the things that I taught you earlier with the Goal Crusher workbook, when we set these big audacious goals, when we make a plan, when we show up, when we do the thing, we have the right community, it is amazing what we can do. Now, one of the things that I learned along my journey is that your mind can either limit or expand what you believe you can achieve. When it comes to setting your goals, I really encourage all of you to set goals that just feel crazy. I'll talk more about audacious goals in a minute because we rise to the level that we believe we can achieve. So the question is, how big are you willing to dream? Now, I mentioned that vision board earlier, the one that I had posted on my wall behind me. I actually just made a new vision board today. An interesting one. I made it with my family. So I talked to my kids. I was like, hey guys, what do we want to do for 2025? And so this one looks a little bit different than a business one, but we have this little vision board for a family. It's super cute. There's fun things on it. So this was the vision board that I made in the middle of 2021. So this was around June 2021 that I made this. It was actually at the very beginning of June 2021 that I made this vision board. And this was all of the things that I want to accomplish in my life, right? I'm like, these are all the things I want to do someday, things I didn't think would happen very soon. I'm going to point you to a couple of things on here that really were pivotal things in my journey. Now, some of the things on this board actually are no longer on the board. The goals changed. I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like things change, right? And that's okay. But these things right here, I mentioned my why is my kids. I mentioned wanting time freedom. So these two pictures here are just big, crazy, audacious goals that I had. This is a clip art of someone turned in their letter of resignation. Now, I worked at the VA, and in 2021, I was making six figures in my full-time job at that point. And I didn't manage any humans. I didn't like manage any programs. It was a pretty sweet gig. Now, most people, when they get in the VA, they don't leave the VA. They call it the golden handcuffs. You got your pension, you got your benefits, you got all your holidays. It's a great place to work. Don't get me wrong. But I always thought that I would work at the VA until I was 68 and a half years old, retire with my pension, retire with my TSP, which is like a 401k. And that was the goal. So to put this picture of me turning in my letter of resignation, leaving the VA felt crazy. Now, the next one here is a clip art of a parent dropping off their kid at school and waving to them. Now, when I worked at the VA, I worked 4/10s. What that means is I worked from 6:30 to 5 o'clock Monday through Thursday. It was wonderful because on Fridays, when my children were young, I would pretend like I was a stay-at-home mom on Fridays. And as they were older, it gave me time to work on my business. But the thing is that at 6:30 in the morning, when my kiddos are just waking up for school, I'm already two towns over working my job. I wasn't able to drive my kids to school. I felt like I was missing those moments with them. And they're small moments. Maybe for people who drive their kids to school all the time, maybe it feels like a burden or annoying, right? But for me, because I didn't have it, it was something I wanted. I want to be able to have breakfast with my kids. I want to be able to drive them to school. I want to be able to have those little conversations. I wanted something that I couldn't do because I was stuck in a job that required me to be working at 6:30 in the morning, two towns away. So this picture was what I wanted more than anything, is I wanted to be able to drive my kids to school. Now, I'm going to kind of jump around on my story just for sake of time, but I want to direct you to these things, and I want to show you what happened just 6 months later. So this picture right here is an actual photo of me turning in my letter of resignation at the VA. This is my former boss, Steve. He is lovely. After I turned in my letter of resignation, I was like, "Can we do a selfie, Steve?" It was kind of silly, but I'm so glad we had this moment. It was really sweet. So 6 months after making this vision board, you guys, in 2021, the year that I made $150,000 in my side hustle, December 2021, I did something I thought I would never do. I was able to turn in my letter of resignation and leave my full-time job at the VA. Now, the next picture, you're going to be looking right over here as well. And this is honestly one of my favorite pictures ever. And what we're looking at is my first day as a full-time entrepreneur, driving my kids to school, um, replicating that picture that I thought would never happen. And what we're looking at right here is my daughter, Emily. You'll see she's wearing a mask. So we are still in the pandemic at that time. My son, Gavin, was like, I think he was like 9 at the time, and he was way too cool for school to wave at his mom in the school drop-off line. But this picture right here means everything to me because if I'm honest, when I made this vision board, I did not think that these things were possible, let alone possible in less than a year. But I want to encourage you guys that your dreams are 100% possible, no matter how crazy, no matter how outrageous they may seem to you. Now, that picture in 2019, when I mentioned that I had a dream in my heart, 3 entrepreneurs spoke and inspired the heck out of me. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was going to do something big. Now, we know what happened after 2019. 2020, all the conferences were canceled. 2021, the conferences were still canceled. The next time this conference met in person in 2020, I didn't just attend, I spoke on stage as a full-time entrepreneur, inspiring other dietitians to start their side hustle in the way that I was inspired the last time I was there. Now, I mentioned in the training the power of being in the right community. These people right here are some of my favorite humans on the face of the planet. They are members of the Smart Success Healthcare Mastermind. At least they were during the season. The mastermind has changed over the years. But 2021 was a big year for me. Again, I made a lot of money in my side hustle, more money in my side hustle than the full hustle. And I also left my job. So this picture right here is another special one, very similar to the Space Needle photo, because while I'm smiling right here, I've got another idea in my head, another dream that suddenly is starting to grow, feels crazy impossible. This was the first time that I met with this crew. This is a high-level mastermind, very expensive. I kind of couldn't believe it when I joined this group, but I got in the right rooms with the right people. We met for the first time. I joined in June 2021, right after I made that vision board. We're meeting here for the first time in person as a group in August 2021 in Orlando, Florida. And in our mastermind, we go around and we have an ask for the group. My ask was, how can I continue to serve dietitians better? And every single one of them had the same response for me, which honestly I did not like. And they all told me I needed to leave my job. And I remember being so annoyed with them because I felt like my opportunity to get my question answered is being wasted because I can't leave the VA. I was telling them all the reasons why they were wrong on why it wasn't possible. I make 6 figures as a dietitian. My family is a high utilizer of healthcare. I've got a pension. Who has pensions? And for every limiting belief that I had, they were able to lovingly remove those beliefs. They were able to tell me, Katie, you can buy your own health insurance. Craziness, right? It is a thing. I buy my own health insurance. They told me, well, Katie, yeah, you make 6 figures in your job, but if you're able to work full time in your business, imagine how much money you could make. If you're making $150,000 in a side hustle, how much money do you think you could make if you actually have more time to work in it? So they were able to lovingly remove all of the limiting beliefs that I had in my head. And even though I didn't tell any of them this day, I told them the next day because I was very irritated with them. But I made the decision that 2021 was going to be the last year I ever worked at the VA. Now, this is August 2021. It was just a few months till the end of the year. So I will tell you, I dreamed, I schemed, I created more goals, I got to work. And this picture right here is actually the very same day, 1 year ago, with the same group of people. And in this picture, just 1 year later, I am a full-time entrepreneur, left my job, and did something that I never thought was possible. So I've been a full-time entrepreneur for the last 3 years now, and I can be completely honest with you that I am living my dream life. I am living a life that only it felt like it was for other people, but not for me. I didn't think that this was possible. I get to be present with my kids. Actually, earlier today, right before we hopped on, my daughter and I, we picked my son up from middle school and they wanted to go on an adventure. So we went on some adventures and we got home about half an hour before this call. And I love having that flexibility where if I was at the VA, I would be working till 5. So I have time freedom. I get to be present with my kids. I get to be present with my family. I get to speak at different groups. I get to have these fun events that I do. I have other legs of my business that I've built. I get to help other dietitians and healthcare professionals live their dreams. And I just am so grateful. Um, I know it's been 3 years, but I still get teary-eyed when I think about, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe that I get to do this because in my head, I'm like, well, when I retire, when I'm 68 and a half, that's when I can do the thing. But we don't have to wait till then. We could do whatever we want with this one life we get to have. So, the reason I want to share my story with you guys is that I want to encourage you guys that your dreams are possible. We need to uncover those dreams. And then we need to create goals as a roadmap to help make those dreams a reality. So, I do want to talk about dreams, and I want to go back to that dream in 2019. Remember that big dream that I had, guys? I wanted to make $300 a month in my side hustle. Now the question is, what did I really want? Did I really want to make 300 bucks a month? Did I really just want to be able to pay a bill? No. I wanted more time with these two. And I wanted money to provide things that we didn't have. So the question is, why did I pick making $300 a month and not quitting my job? Well, let me tell you, I could write a book on this. Many things. Number one was lack of awareness. I didn't even know it was possible, honestly, until I met my mentor, Greg Todd. I didn't even know that this stuff was possible. I just knew what I knew, right? Like you go to school, you get your degree, you work a job, you get your benefits, you retire. Like that was the path that I knew. I didn't even know something else was possible. I also had a lot of self-doubt. If I'm honest, entrepreneurship has been the best personal development journey, and my confidence now is like 1,000% higher than when I started. But I had a lot of self-doubt. I like this is for other people, but not for me. I can't possibly do that. I also had a lot of fear when it came to business of being greedy. I didn't want people to think like, oh, I'm greedy. And dietitians, I mentioned this already, but we do struggle with a lot of money mindset issues. And I remember early on as I was charging for stuff, I'm like, but I volunteer a lot. Like I had to justify that I work for free a lot to justify charging for stuff. So I had this fear of being greedy, right? Like, oh, I should be grateful for what I have. I don't need to make a lot of money. I also had that like, who am I to do this? Who am I? There are other people out there doing amazing things. I'm not needed in this space. I was also in the wrong community. I wasn't in the room with people doing amazing things that were even better than me. They say a rising tide raises all ships. Once I got in the right communities with the right people, I started seeing people do amazing things and realized like, man, this is possible. I also had a fixed mindset, which means I thought this is the way things are and they will never change. It's just where I was. So let's talk about audacious goals. And you guys haven't set your goals yet, but I'm hoping that I'm triggering something in you to dream real big. I want you guys to be asking yourselves, are my dreams big enough? They say ask better questions, get better answers, but I will say if you have better dreams, you'll get a better life. So let's talk about what it means to be audacious, because I want you guys to set goals. Synonyms for audacious include bold, daring, fearless, brave, reckless, unafraid, courageous, and gutsy. So I'm going to ask you guys again, are your dreams big enough? And what do you really want? I like this little meme here. So if you guys remember the movie The Notebook and they're like fighting, what do you want? Simple. So really figuring out, what do you want and is it big enough? So coming back to those 10 steps that we went over earlier and that you guys will be doing when you go through your workbook, I really want to highlight number 4 because this is the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to have. Yes, I want you to have a strong foundation for these goals. I want you to be very clear in what you're going to do. I want you to show up and do the work, but I also want to make sure that you're dreaming big enough because even if it feels crazy, this crazy dream that you have that you've never spoken out loud because what people think, I want 2025 to be the year that you go a little crazy. I want it to be the year that you dream bigger than you've ever dreamed before and go out there and pursue your dreams relentlessly because they are possible. So we are wrapping up the training, but I want to share with you guys some places for continued support because I don't just want this to be a training that you're like, yes, and then you're like, okay, now what? So I am a coach. I love helping people pursue their goals. I do a lot of things in my business. I help dietitians and healthcare professionals build businesses based on blogging through Blogging Accelerator program. I have programs where I help dietitians to really kind of kickstart their businesses, the Beyond the 9 to 5 coaching course. I speak on stages, but also dietitian side hustle. So we have the Facebook group. If you are not in it, which many of you are because we are live streaming in it, I want you guys to join it. It is a wonderful community of people just like you. I think there's over 5,000 people in the community. Dietitian Side Hustle is also a podcast. It is over 5 years old now. I post episodes every week, except for I skipped the week of Christmas, but almost every week I post podcast episodes. And then also the website, Dietitian Side Hustle. Now, dietitiansidehustle.com is really a resource that I created for you guys. So if you go here, there's lots of stuff on the top. There's a start here page. There's a side hustle ideas page, opportunities to work with me. There's opportunities for like free stuff, group stuff, private stuff. There's nothing on events right now. I keep meaning to update that, but I'll tell you about some events in the next slide. And then resources, and then a blog. The blog has some cool stuff in it. Like it has like podcasts to listen to, business coaches, not a ton of articles, but value-based articles. But this page right here is resources for dietitian side hustlers. And I should have updated my screenshot. I got rid of the duplicate. But if you click in here, you'll see there's different side hustle ideas, helpful websites, Facebook groups, podcasts, and resources for entrepreneurs. So if you are looking for some more resources on side hustles, dietitiansidehustle.com has a ton of stuff for you. Now, I want to share some upcoming events, all of which are free. If you want to register for any of these events, they are from me and affiliate partners that I have. You just go to katiedodd.com. That is my Linktree page, and you'll find 2 of these. The other ones will come up later. So some things that are coming on this month, if you're like doing this training, you're totally pumped, you want to continue building your entrepreneurial business journey, there's a few things I want to let you know about. This week, actually on Wednesday, dietitian Rochelle Inwood with the Dietitian Resource is hosting a free webinar called From Idea to Income, Online Course Creation Made Simple. I actually just had her on the podcast, Dietitian Side Hustle, and she is the guru when it comes to course creation. So that is a completely free opportunity. If you go to katiedodd.com, you will be able to register now. The 5-day Invincible Challenge. I mentioned several times my business coach, Greg Todd. Now, when I did a challenge with him in 2020, it was called the 2021 Healthcare Challenge. It was a 21-day challenge and it cost $97. Now, he has taken that challenge over time and he's compressed it down into 5 days and made it free. So I cannot emphasize this enough. The 5-day Invincible Challenge is incredible. I am an affiliate for it. I don't have the link yet, but when I have it, it will be at katiedodd.com. So just check back there. If you're on my email list, you'll get an email from me. But that challenge is going to be a full week, January 20th to 24th. 2025 with my coach, Greg Todd, who is amazing. I'm actually going to Florida this weekend and I will be at a mastermind event with him. I am doing a webinar. So if you guys want to hear more from me, I mentioned blogging several times. Blogging is one of my true loves. And so I will be doing my blogging as a business webinar. I've done it before. If you've never been on it, I want you to sign up. If you have been on it and it's been a while, I want you to sign up. I'll be doing that on January 27th, completely free. And then finally, the Level Up Video Masterclass. It's going to be a masterclass by April Sins. She is the video dietitian who is a guru in all things video for dietitians. She has 2 days for her masterclass, again, completely free on February 2nd and 3rd. I don't have the link for that yet, but when I do, it will go to katiedodd.com. So save the date, upcoming events, totally free to help you on your journey for whatever your side hustle endeavors are. And actually, I just want to mention this real quick because I know I jumped over it. You might be like, what the heck is the Invincible Challenge? I will tell you, I know it's kind of a weird name, but it's about becoming invincible in business and invincible in life, becoming so strong that you cannot be overcome or defeated. So he is going to set up some really strong foundations for what you need to do to have success in business. Everything I'm doing is a result of working with this human. So I'm going to have some really cool affiliate stuff with it. So you'll definitely want to sign up through my affiliate link. I always provide tons of value with my affiliate stuff. So definitely check that out. So we are coming to the end of the training. We've covered lots of stuff over the last hour-ish. I'm actually under time. I'm very proud of myself. So we talked about becoming the 3%, understanding that we are a gazillion times more likely to have success if we actually get our ideas, our goals out of our head and have them on paper. And that's what I want for all of you. I want you to go out there and live your dreams and change the world. So I want you all to be the 3%. We talked about the 10 steps for being a goal crusher. And then I shared that workbook for you guys. I shared a little bit of my story and sprinkled in some mindset along the way and talked about opportunities for continued support. Again, this is all free stuff in what I shared. So I do have some action items for you. I have some homework. So it is now your turn. I have loved this opportunity to share this with you guys, but I want this webinar to be like the picture I shared with you guys of me at Seattle. I want that to be you. I want you to be at this point where you're like, man, I have this little fire in my heart right now, this little spark. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's going to be big. I'm going to do something so amazing that this time next year, this time 5 years from now, I'm going to be looking back at life and be like, holy cow, I cannot believe this happened. So what I want this webinar to be is something that is life-changing for you. I want this webinar to be a spark. I don't just want this training to be something that you're like, oh, that was cool. That was interesting. I want you to take the momentum of this training and move forward into 2025 to make this the year that changes everything for you. So in order to do that, you got to do the work. So your action items, you have 3 of them. Number 1, I want you to print out the Goal Crusher workbook. I dropped the link. I'm going to go ahead and drop it again. And if you're on Facebook, you'll see the link in the comments and in the description, it should be there. And if you can't find it, just ask me. I will make sure you get it. Then I want you to schedule in your calendar, whether or not you use your phone or you use a paper calendar, I want you to schedule 1 hour to create your goals. 1 hour of uninterrupted time. Now, this might look like finding someone to watch your kids. This might look like taking an hour off of work, taking a long break. This might look like maybe driving somewhere in nature or going to a coffee shop or going somewhere where there's no one around you. So you actually have time to dream and scheme and dream bigger. So schedule 1 hour into your time to complete the workbook and figure out your goals. And then I'm going to put a little post in the Dietitian Side House Facebook group, but I want you to share your goals to that post. You could actually go back and even share it to this live stream if you want. And I know that part can be scary, but we know that if we share our goals, we're more likely to do it. And actually, I think back at the income goals, I mentioned how I was sharing it on the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. I was also sharing it on the blog. And I think a lot of me doing it had to do with sharing it publicly. Like, okay, I told people I'm going to do it. I better do it, right? So, yeah, those are your action items. Print out the workbook, schedule an hour, and do it by the end of this week. Like, honestly, the sooner you could do it. If you have an hour now, take it. Okay. So that is what I have for you. That is the live training. I hope that you found value. If you found value in this, go ahead and comment value. We do have a few minutes, so if anyone does have questions for me, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. For those who are on Zoom Live, type it in the comments. If you're on Facebook, you know what, you can go ahead and ask questions in the Facebook group too. But I've got a few minutes, so if anyone has any questions about anything I might have shared, you can feel free to ask. Okay, guys, I went ahead and cut it off before Q&A. We only did have one question, but there's a lot of like that awkward pause in me talking as I'm waiting for people to type. So if you want to hear the question that was asked and my answer, you can go watch it on Facebook. But I hope that you enjoyed this training and got a lot of value out of it. Now, I did want to share one final thing before we wrap up. I share a lot with you guys on the podcast. A lot of you know all kinds of things about me, including my cat, Marley, who passed away in August of 2024. And I actually have a little snuggle bug on my lap right now. He's meowing for you guys. I'm going to hold him up if you're watching on YouTube. There's my cat. There's Marco. So we adopted a new kitten. My daughter is a cat person, and she has been so sad since our cat Marley passed away. He was 16 and a half years old. He was beautiful, fun, ornery, all the things. I recorded a podcast episode about how he flooded my kitchen if you want to go back and listen to that one. But, you know, we had a season of mourning, a season of really missing Marley, but we knew that we wanted another cat in this household. So over winter break, we actually went down to the local cat shelter and adopted a little kitty. His name is Marco, and he is a short-haired domestic tabby cat, and he's the sweetest thing ever. Like, I am in love with him. He was born on August 14th, 2024, so he's just about 5 months old, and he's so fun. I will say he makes work a little bit challenging because he gets so excited with the mouse that he chases it. I have 2 screens. One is touchscreen, one is regular. And when he's by me, I have to do work on my regular screen because he will smack my touchscreen and then like mess up what I'm doing. But he's super fun. He's like with me everywhere I go. Playful, fun, snuggly. So our house feels full again with a little kitty in it. So anyways, just thought I'd share that with you guys since, you know, most of you who listen to the podcast knew about Marley. So now we have a Marco. So thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I hope that you are able to dream and scheme and make some amazing plans for 2025. And I will see you all next week on the podcast. Bye, guys.